Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of what do we do here? Comic Shop Talk Live. Brought to you by Black Cat Comics and Rock and Milpitas, your one-stop shop for all things superhero. Shop online at black-cat-comics.com. We're keeping you connected to the comic book community. I'm Mark.
I'm Francie.
And we've got a fun, exciting show for you guys today. Lots of great things to talk about. Funtational, informational, inspirational, and celebrational. Boy, we've got big comic industry news. We've got
Huge.
DC Comics news to talk about.
Huger.
We've got lots of new this week, great books to talk about. Like we say, fun-formational stuff going on. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. It is a interactive program, so feel free to throw your questions, comments, concerns, queries. We want to know what you're reading, what you're looking forward to.
Top of the stack this week.
What's at the top of the stack? What are you most excited about? Always like to start the show with Comic Shop News. Comic Shop News. Big news across the industry. So Todd Mcfarlane, creator of Spawn, mastermind of one of the best eras of the Amazing Spider-Man, is taking on the entire industry once again and is doing what Todd does. And he's calling 2021 the year of Spawn. That was well timed. That was good job with that. And it's very exciting for a number of reasons. I almost don't know where to start with that, but he's of course one of the great talents. Spawn is one of the big books. It's been getting bigger and bigger.
He'll be first to tell you that too.
He is first to tell you that. If he doesn't have the Stan Lee gene for shameless self-promotion, I don't know who does. Yeah. But he's great. He's a top talent. We all know what Spawn is. We all know about what Image did in the 90s, and I'll try and wrap up a little bit of this, summarize a bit of my excitement about this, because what Image did when Todd and the gang started all of that back in the 90s, it put the emphasis back on creators, back on the talent of comics, and it put the emphasis, though we didn't really know or understand it at the time, it put the emphasis on periodical comics. And that's one of the things that's exciting me about his announcement. Two things. One, most importantly, he's incorporating some of the top talent in comics. And if you don't know that Art Adams is one of the top talents in comics, I don't even know the whole list of names, but with the, I was just like, wow. He's got some of the top people in comics, as Image does. And secondly, again, he's putting the emphasis on periodical comics. And I say that not just as somebody who sells periodical comics, but as a longtime fan. That's the heart and soul. That's the meat of this industry, is the next issue, is reading an issue and wanting that next issue, wanting to get into your comic shop. So the idea that there's going to be a new Spawn book, a different Spawn book every week, so that people are coming into the shop every week looking for a comic is exciting. And the idea that comic will have, again, some of the top writers and artists in the biz is just really fun and exciting.
Stolen or maybe picked up from the
poached. I think
DC.
Poached is the word.
Well, you can't be poached if you got laid off.
That's true. Then rescued. Maybe that's the word. Maybe
I think so.
Maybe rescue is a word. And honestly, I don't know.
Hi, Teresa and Izzy.
There's a lot going on in the industry these days, and so Todd stepping up and giving it a shot in the arm, which I guess is a timely metaphor, is really awesome. And like I say, as a longtime fan of both Spawn and comics, I'm really excited about that. So I think that's some big comic shop news.
And as you mentioned last night, being the last few days of Black History Month, Spawn is a phenomenal character of African-American descent.
Yes, let's not forget that the best-selling modern comic
features.
He calls it the best-selling comic of all time, and to be honest, I'm not sure that that's factual, but it is certainly the best-selling comic of modern times.
It was at the time.
That's what I mean. There's no book in my lifetime that has a print run that sold through like Spawn #1.
Didn't like Superman Action, like the first, they
sold
like
that's
5
I say, like in the
copies.
golden age, there had to have been bigger selling. I know that Shazam had like a 15 million copy print run.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I don't know about all time, but certainly in modern times, let's not forget, yes, he's an African-American character in the best-selling comic of all time. Spawn #1?
Spawn #1.
I had it handy. I warned her in advance that this was supposed to be a DC show, but I'm just going to be talking up Spawn all show long. So, like she said, African-American, Black History Month, great representation right there. And it's coming up in new this week too.
Yep, issue 315.
315. So that's a big deal.
You got that too.
Well, that was part of the new this week thing. We'll get to that in a little bit.
All right.
So anywho, like I say, I think that's the big comic shop news. I think Todd is somebody who often sends ripples through the industry. And again, I'm particularly excited because of all the people he has involved. As much as I love Todd and everybody loves, Spawn, if it was just him trying to crank out 4 books, I think we might be a little dubious. But he's got a huge list of talent and really excited about that. And
there's 4 books. Different offshoots. There's the Gunslinger, there's Scorched, which is a combination like their JLA, their team up book. There's of course Spawn, and then there's King Spawn. And I don't remember what that one is, but they all look great.
Gunslinger Spawn's awesome.
I mean, come on.
I mean, So yeah, I think that's probably some of the biggest news to hit comic shop news in quite a while.
Starting in June, he said.
Yep. So right around the corner. So that's awesome. Good on you, Todd.
Yeah.
Along with everything else Image has done to support shops and all this through the last year and everything. That's really cool.
See.
So I guess in other comic shop news, in our comic shop news is the big DC Comics sale. All month long, we've been doing different publishers on sale every weekend. This weekend is the big DC Comics sale. We've already been processing tons and tons of orders. So thank you all for participating. We really appreciate it. And you're stoked because there's tons of great stuff headed your way in the mail or that you've already picked up. And we're doing it all day, all night tonight, all day, all night tomorrow, till Sunday at midnight. So take advantage of that. We've got lots of great DC books to talk about to tempt you and wet your whistle while we're discussing DC Comics.
Are we going to do that? Are we going to finish up the news?
And you got one more. You got a very important piece of comic shop news.
I do. Cat Chronicles coming to our store near you. We've got the final pages we've been looking at. We're going to be going to print or to the press probably within the next 10 days or so. And so towards the middle end of March, we will have them in our hot little hands to give out. So I cannot wait for that moment. Holding that comic in my hands.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome sauce.
Guys are going to be excited. Boy, we loved seeing the pencils, and then we saw the inks, and that was amazing. Now we're seeing the colors, and that's amazing.
So
the story is, of course, creepy cool.
So good.
Really proud of the project. Really excited about the project. Yeah. And you guys are going to be excited about it, too.
Yes.
Good stuff. So let's talk some DC Comics.
DC Comics.
Like we said, this weekend is the big DC sale. As I said in the newsletter this week, DC runs the gamut from Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all the way into sci-fi and horror and all these other things.
Yeah.
So whoever you are, whatever you like to read, whatever kind of comics you like, there's a DC book for you.
So Batman doesn't need any help. We all know and love Batman, so we won't talk about that. We're kind of going to go into the other stuff. So anything for me that was DC Vertigo back in the day or DC Black Label, so Why the Last Man, it's about the last surviving male on the planet. There's a pandemic that kills all of the male species of every shape, size, not just humans. And there's just one dude left and one male monkey left. What happens? So that's a really good story.
It's a great, great story. And I think it's optioned for a movie.
The stupid internet. Looks like we're delayed over here again. Oh, those interwebs. And of course, Sandman. Any chance, just like he does, to talk about John Byrne, I talk about Neil Gaiman whenever I can. So we've got the Compendium Sandman, which has, I think, like the first 16 issues, and Sandman Midnight Theater as well. So this is a nice chunky one. If you don't want to invest in the big, hard, large tomes, you can get, there's 10 of the trades for Sandman. It goes to 75 issues. And then the Overture, which is actually kind of like the prequel to the series that came out after. I know it's very confusing, but this is basically the origin kind of story of Sandman. And then you can jump into the regular Sandman that started in the 90s. This just came out within the last 5 years or so?
Yeah, fairly recent.
By amazing art by J.H. Williams III. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So for the story, of course, is amazing, but the art alone is just mind-blowing.
So how come every time somebody says J.H. Williams, I think H.H. Holmes? I don't know. I gotta
do a lot
fix
of
that.
Serial killer shows. That's probably why. Teresa knows what I'm talking about. What else you got?
Keep rolling. You got, while you're on this Vertigo thing.
100 Bullets, Brian Azzarello. Shoot 'em up gangster stuff. American Vampire.
Crime noir.
Yeah, American Vampire with Scott Snyder is on their second run right now. Vampire stuff. And this thing's heavier than my weight, so
How about I hold it while you talk about it?
Good. Give me my Vanna White. Fables is a wonderful story. It goes 150 issues. Bill Willingham and Steve Lealoha, a local native of San Francisco, did a lot of the art and the inks. So the story is, what if fairy tale legends and myths and characters are real and they're living amongst us in secret in a kind of cloaked area of New York City? And what happens when their old fairy tale land merges with modern times? So it's a phenomenal book that I highly recommend if you're any fan of any kind of fantasy or any kind of grim fairy tales type stuff. You'll love Fables. It's incredible, and it's finished. So like I said, it's 150 issues, so it's finite, and well worth the read. And I've got some original art from that too.
Yes, you do. I'll piggyback on this a little bit by saying it's not an understatement to call Fables one of the best comic series of all time, one of the most unique comic series of all time.
Really good.
A couple of the top talents of all time. And the reason I'm jumping in on this one is because you all know I refer to myself as the least common denominator of comics. I love capes. I love Superman punching robots and Superman.
Monkeys. You like monkeys?
I do love monkeys in lab coats. Monkeys and gorillas in lab coats is the coolest thing. So I read pretty much just Superman fighting robots. So to get me into a fantasy book is difficult. To keep me in a fantasy book is difficult. But Bill Willingham did it, because the twists, the turns, the characterization, just everything about this book is just tons and tons of fun. So if you are someone who reads stuff besides the capes, this is definitely a book that you want. If you're somebody like me who only reads Marvel, DC, superhero stuff, you would enjoy this book. This book would suck you in and you'd really like it. Much like Why the Last Man. Why the Last Man is some of the best science fiction you're going to find.
If you're a dude watching, trying to figure out how to get a woman in your life, potentially a girlfriend, to read comics, this is the book. There's a lot of really strong female protagonists in the book. It's just really well written.
And traditionally speaking, Sandman was also that book. For a long time, it was sort of talked about among comic book people back when there were only like 4 women in comics.
Tell the story, or I'll tell the story. You're like, what are you talking about?
Don't get me in trouble.
So Neil Gaiman tells a funny story about how in the early 90s, he would get applauded by retailers and told, hey, dude, you got women back in my shop. So Neil Gaiman, it's true. It's what got me reading, to be honest, comics. he brought the other half of the population into comic reading.
Sure. Well, and not to imply that, I don't know, Sandman isn't a chick flick. It's just this idea that what it is like I'm talking about with Fables, was that he came up with something that was brilliant fantasy in a time when pretty much everything in comics was just, Superman punching robots. And so it brought in not just women, but a whole new audience to comics. And we're all very grateful for that.
There's a delay. It's so weird.
Oh, they'll catch up.
Yeah.
Okay, so my DC things for the week, and I would take the opposite stance. I could sit here and like everybody talk about Batman all day long, but like she said, that doesn't really need any help. We have an endless list just to give it its due. We have an endless list of Batman trade paperbacks, Batman comics, all those things. If you are new to comics, or if you want to get somebody into comics, you want to get something cool for anybody, pick up anything like Hush, Court of Owls, Long Halloween, Arkham Asylum, just about any Batman graphic novel is going to be an awesome introduction to comics.
What's the Pauldini book? True Tales of Dark Knight Story.
Yes, that's
everyone should be reading.
Everybody should read that. And I think particularly Hush is a book I like to put in anybody's hand, particularly the newbies, or if you want to get somebody, show somebody why you like comics. Hush is a great book because all the art by Jim Lee, and it's got all the great villains, Bat villains everybody knows. So anyway, Batman is the core, and of course I could go on with Superman all day long. Superman for all seasons, Superman Red Sun, all kinds of things. I wanted to focus just a little bit on a couple of things that were new this week. I know we're going to have a whole new this week section, but while we're talking DC, and I kind of did this in the Wednesday video this week, I wanted to give it a little more emphasis. Here is the beginning and the end of the DC multiverse, multiversity. So this week's Generation Forged is the latest version of DC streamlining the timeline, fixing things, and it's really awesome. And it's got Commandy in it, which is all you really need to know. But basically, again, they're sort of in the wake of Dark Knight, Death Metal, in the wake of Future State, and all these things. They're sort of making it easier on people, and not having 52 Earths in 52 universes. It's just one freaking Earth in one freaking universe, which is great. So if you're a DC fan, you have to pick up this book. And then on and on I could go, but for the purpose of this part of the conversation, I wanted to talk about Crisis on Multiple Earths. It's a trade that is back in print this week, big old chunky thing, and it's so much fun. I'll begin by saying, yes, I appreciate that this stuff is very dated. Frankly, and don't get mad, I always say DC kind of skipped the Silver Age and jumped right to the Bronze Age. And so when you look at DC Silver Age books, it looks a lot like their Golden Age books. It looks a lot like 40s and 50s comics. So modern readers might not be like, hey, that looks awesome. But all your great history is here. The reason I mention it, 100 years ago, they would do two issues of Justice League every summer. It was your big summer event. And they would bring over either the JSA would come from Earth 2 to our Earth, or our guys on Earth 1 would go over to Earth 2. But they would have JSA crossovers every year. And before nerds got all bent out of shape about continuity, it was fun. And we all just accepted that wacky hijinks and different worlds, and sure. And of course, as time went on and the comics went on, it became way too unwieldy, and that's where we get Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was the first attempt to fix everything. And we got Zero Hour, which was the next attempt to fix everything, all the way up to this week's attempt to fix everything. But it all started here in Crisis in Multiple Earths, and it's just tons of fun. Reading original Black Canary. Let's see if you can get the whole. I mean, if nothing else, look at that cute little picture of them all holding hands. There's Superman and Batman holding hands. When are you ever going to see Superman and Batman holding hands? Come on.
Singing Kumbaya.
But anywho, I'm making a little bit of fun. But this is a really, really important piece of DC Comics history. And it sort of has gotten lost on all of us that it all started just with summertime fun. Back in the day, comics knew that all the kids were out of school, so they wanted to do something cool. And so DC started this summer event. Marvel kind of picked up on that shortly after, and they started doing their annuals every summer, and then they started doing events and blah, 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 blah. But as I say, this era gets lost on a lot of folks, except for the diehards and the old people. So if you are a newer reader, or if you're not 100 years old like me, pick this up and learn yourself some really fun good times from 1960s comics. It's a real treat. Like I say, look at them all holding hands. It's just adorable.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Justice League cartoon.
It does. I mean, and you see like Hawkman, original Dr. Fate, really awesome. And I should say, for the record, I was poking a little fun with this too, but it's a really good book. Anything written by Dan Jurgens is a really good book. Lots of fun DC stuff to get into. And
if you're just starting out reading DC or not sure where to begin, any volume 1 trade's a great way to start. I'm a huge fan of the first 2 volumes of the New 52 stuff. So Brian Azzarello writing Wonder Woman, Judd Winnick writing Catwoman, Scott Snyder's Batman and Detective. Those were all phenomenal books, but really only for the first 12 issues, and then it kind of got wonky. So the first volumes are pretty awesome.
Yeah, the first 2. I hate to say it like this, but it was just kind of true. By volume 4,
they have different
across
teams.
The line, things started to New 52 didn't hold up.
No,
but the beginning was really
solid.
Really great. Catwoman, Aquaman.
Jeff Johns did Aquaman.
That first volume Aquaman
Jeff
book.
Lemire,
will
Animal
change
Man.
Your life. The Animal Man, the Swamp Thing
Thing. So good.
So yeah, that's really true. Any of those first volume New 52 books. Rebirth was a little bit like that. I liked a lot of the beginning of the Rebirth stuff. Any volume 1, just like Batman, any first volume of Justice League from the last 20 years is going to be great stuff. Again, the New 52 thing with Jim Lee and all that was one of the best books of the era.
Remember that their tagline, "Drawing the line at $2.99," that lasted a year.
Yeah, not even that long.
They're like, we're not going to go above $2.99 comic retail price ever.
But everything DC on the site is 25% off this weekend.
Yes.
So, boy, as I say about these things, as I say in the weekly video, as I say all the time, I really encourage folks to do one or both of 2 things. Get back into a title that you got out of. Try something that you used to love, and get back to it, because it's probably better than whatever made you leave it. Or try something brand new. Try a title you never read, a writer you never read, an artist you never read. Because there's tons and tons of top talent out there, and there's way too many books for anybody to know everything that's going on. So 25% off, you can try something new and be like, hey, this guy, Bob Johnson's really good. And then all of a sudden you have a new favorite writer.
Yes.
So scroll through all that DC stuff, toys, comics, trades, whatever it might be, and pick up something super fun. Because there's just 80 years of great DC stuff to look at and go through.
Oh, there goes our sign.
There goes the A-frame sign. Now they'll have to come right to the door.
Yeah, good times. I love DC. Anything from the Joe Hill stuff too. We actually don't have any in stock because it's so good. But any of the Joe Hill, Basket Full of Heads, Teresa, you might like some of that stuff. It's all horror. So Joe Hill, of course, son of Stephen King, he did Basket Full of Heads. He kind of curated all these titles: Daphne Byrne, Dollhouse, Plunge. And I'm missing one, but they were all phenomenal. They're all 4 or 5 issue stories, complete stories, standalone books. And I'm hoping that he does this again, because it was so good.
And of course, Watchmen, V for Vendetta. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader. Anything Tom King. Oh, and much like the old school Crisis on Multiple Earths, DC also has a ton of chunky trades like this. Superman in the Golden Age, Batman in the Golden Age, Wonder Woman in the Golden Age, Green Lantern in the Silver Age, Flash in the Silver Age, Justice League in the Silver Age.
Or in the 60s, 70s.
Which is, Batman, Superman in the
decade.
50s, Wonder Woman in the 50s, Mr. 50s. So again, if you're a newer reader or if you love the old school stuff like I do, it's fun to see the history of comics. It's fun to see all those original origin stories and all of that. Like I say, 80 years of history in comics, trades, toys, all kinds of fun stuff.
25% off.
Oh, 25% off.
Only.
Sunday.
Black-cat-comics.com. Click on shop and it'll be right there. It'll say DC Comics. Click on it and anything on there is 25% off. Discount taken automatically at checkout.
Boom.
Boom.
So that's DC-orama.
Yes.
So we got a few minutes. Let's talk some new this week. What's on the top of your... Oh, and we're talking to you, too. We want to hear what your favorite DC books are. Old school, new school. We want to know what you're reading this week, what you read last week, what you might be looking forward to next week. It's an interactive program. Okay,
Department of Truth. Oh, it's getting so good. So X-Files meets Paranormal State meets conspiracy theory meets consciousness.
Sort of X-Files meets QAnon.
Oh, that's it. So the premise is, what if enough people believed a conspiracy theory that it actually became true? So if enough flat earthers tipped the scale and believed that the earth was flat and then the earth actually did become flat. And so it's this team of kind of secretive FBI agents. It's kind of a clandestine group within the agency that's trying to figure out who's behind all this stuff and really trying to figure out who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, what does this all mean, how does this all work, and it's creepy good. So top of my stack, Department of Truth, issue number 6. 6 is out this week.
And the trade for 1 through 5 is out this week as well.
We sold it already, though, I think.
Yep. We'll probably have one back next week.
Yeah.
Good stuff. My turn?
Your turn.
I warned you. Spawn 315.
There it is.
This is the B cover, the Mcfarland cover, because like I say, I'm talking up some Mcfarland. Let me use this point to defend loudmouth, arrogant shucksters. Because there's a new book out about Stan the Man, and it's one of those, gritty, behind the scenes, take a look at the real man kind of thing. And I'll say, for my own humble opinion, I haven't read the book. I'm sure it's a well-written book. I'm sure everything in it is true, and everything that it says is true, as all the things that everybody says about Stan is true. But all of those things are only part of the story. And Stan's great. And if you were that great, you'd talk it up too. And I apply the same thing to my man, Todd. Todd takes a lot of heat. He deserves it. I don't dispute any of the things that Neil Gaiman or anyone else that has sued him says about him. I understand and all of those things. But the man is an insanely talented individual who loves comic books, and he makes great comics. And so I don't have a problem with him going on and on about himself. I don't have a problem with him going on and on about his contributions and his achievements because it's factual and because I love his stuff. Is he annoying? Sure. But like I say, maybe he's just a little too honest. So wherever I put it, way back in the day, Spawn #1 changed the world. We all know Spawn #1. Here's Spawn 315 because it's still going, still as awesome as it ever was. New twists and turns. As I say, it's opening up into a whole universe of more titles and more characters. I can't say as popular now as it's ever been because there aren't as many people in comics now as there were in 1992. But the book is still one of our better sellers, one of our best sellers, and still has some great art. And to my other point about shameless self-promoting and shucksters, Stan would have been the first to tell you about the immense talent of Jack Kirby. Stan would have been the first person to tell you he didn't give everybody their credit, but he did give everybody their honorable mention. And Todd does the same thing. I was watching that video, and Todd called Greg Capullo the premier Spawn artist. And considering Todd created the character and drew the first 50 issues, I thought that was a very nice compliment. But like I say, still has some of the best art in comics, still a ton of fun to read. Last thing I would mention is this giant guy. This is the first 50 issues of the book. So if you don't believe me, pick this guy up. It's now in full color. The previous printings were only in black and white. It's a giant, awesome book that is tons of fun to read. 50 freaking issues of Spawn.
That's insane.
It's great. It's great. It's a real reminder of what he's done all these years. He has built a great universe of great characters, and yes, has built an empire, and you got some of it right there.
Yeah, so speaking of which, I'm going to tie it all together. Coming back to DC, coming back to Todd.
Wrap it up.
New this week, we've got new Todd Mcfarlane toys that came out today. They're heavy, too. They're hefty. They're very articulate, as he does. We've got
articulated.
Articulated.
I don't think they're articulate.
That's true. So, so you can see them up close. So we've got him doing the DC multiverse action figures. We've got a ton of those on our online store, and they're really, really well done. There's close-up pictures of them on our site if you want to take a closer look.
But I have to show real quick, since you busted him out, that Robin figure's awesome. That's a cool Damian figure right there. That sword is bigger than he is.
Huge.
Really cool.
Hi, Julie. Have not read Stray Dogs that came out this week, but I thumbed through it, and it looks awesome. It looks like a total cartoon, like a Disney cartoon. I'm intrigued by it. I want to read it, but I haven't really gotten to it just yet this week. So if you've read it, what did you think about it?
I know we sold out of it, and I think everybody's sold out of it because it's already
sold out, so I can't read it.
It's already gone to second printing. I've already ordered the second print. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Julie, because it's one of my thousands of pitches to say, always buy a first issue image book.
Yeah.
If you have any interest in it at all, if you think the premise sounds cool, if you think the art looks cool, if you think the writer has a name that sounds fun to say, buy that book. Because it might be Spawn #1, Department of Truth #1, Stray Dogs #1. If you don't like it, it was $4, but chances are you will like it, and chances are you'll be glad you picked it up and you'll keep reading. Image, I say all the time, Image does books that the other companies just don't do. So if you're looking for something really different and cool, there's an Image book that should be on your list.
Still keeping on the DC and Todd McFarlane theme. So Batman presents White Knight. It's such a long title. White Knight presents Harley Quinn. And we're almost at the end. We're on issue 5 right now. So kind of different Elseworld stuff, different universe. Batman's in prison. Well, it's from the last series. So spoiler alert, from the last series. And so Harley's kind of picking up the pieces and doing some detective work on all these murders that are happening in kind of old school Hollywood actors, and it's phenomenal. Great art, great story. And the reason why it's connected to Todd McFarlane is Sean Murphy is one of the many talented artists / writers that are going to be joining the Spawn team with one of those 4 books in June.
Nice. Pull together.
I'm trying to bring it all together.
That was awesome. I wish I had made more notes about that list of Spawn universe creators.
Phil, Maniac in New York #1 was the shizzle. That was good, creepy stuff. Teresa, you might like that. Maniac in New York. So I can't wait to see what they do with issue 2.
Is that Dark Horse or Aftershock, or who was that?
I thought it was Image, right?
Maybe,
Phil?
yeah. Another Image #1.
But no, it was good. It's good. I like it. I can't wait for #2. It's gonna be good.
Okay, so another no surprise from me. We'll be hyping up another issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, look how cute.
I'm sorry. Let me back up half a step and say Future State to stick to the DC thing really quick, though I don't have one handy. Anything Future State, especially this weekend while it's 25% off, and before next week when the the Infinite Frontier stuff starts. Much like Image Books, go back, take a look at all that future state stuff that we have on the site. Anything that has cool art, anything with a character that looks interesting to you, pick that up because it's been a lot of fun.
This is the last one of which one? Yeah, Dark Detective. I really like this one. Futuristic Batman stuff. Good.
This week ends the vast majority of it. There's like one more issue of a Superman one that's coming. But like I say, this week wraps it up. So try all that different stuff, 25% off, super fun. Now, my pitch for Amazing Spider-Man is my same pitch that I've been throwing at you since probably number 50. I think this is number 60. It's just as much fun as Spider-Man has ever been. And I can't say enough about it because it's such a perfect mix of everything you know and love about Spidey, wrapped up in new stories. But I almost don't want to say new stories. Evolution is the word that comes to mind with what's going on in Spider-Man. When you read this, you realize that these are characters who have years together. The friends, the enemies, they all have this kind of history and these relationships that have evolved in good ways and bad ways and worse ways. And so you see the ramifications of what has happened between these people over all these years. And you don't have to know all the history to get the book. But like I say, it's the Peter Parker that you know, the Peter Parker that you're familiar with, and the life of Peter Parker that we're all familiar with. But instead of the same old, I've seen this 100 times, it's like, oh, this is what's going on now. Oh, that's what happened after this event. Like I say, you sort of see what's happened, that these people have connections and like I say, it's just been really, really fun to read. It's been top of the game. As I say, in superhero comics, you do one of two things. When a new writer takes over, you need to go in a bold new direction because they've been doing something for a long time and the readers are tired of that. So you go in a bold new direction. And now we're going to put Peter Parker out in space and whatever. Okay, great. And that's what they did in the arc before Spencer. Peter Parker was rich, and it was all these things that you'd never seen in a Spider-Man comic before, and that was cool and that was interesting. But Zdarsky, did that, and he ended his run. And when Spencer took over, the first trade is called Back to Basics, and that's what he did. He brings back, Norman Osborn and everybody that you know and love to hate in a Spider-Man comic, and he's doing new and cool and interesting stories with all these characters that you're familiar with. So it's a little bit of everything you know and love, a little bit brand new, fun, and exciting. If you've ever been a Spidey fan, come back, pick up the reprint to number 55 and catch up to number 60, or pick up all the trades from the Spencer run. However it is you want to do it, just grab the latest issue and dive right in. Great, great time to be a Spider-Man fan. Maybe one of the best books Marvel's doing right now.
Yes.
As it should be. Is 60 a new arc? Yes, I guess it's sort of part one, but it's kind of, you can jump in here, but it is kind of building from the previous two arcs.
All right.
Amazing Spider-Man.
All right, here we go. Speaking of image number 1, Two Moons came out this week. I think I figured out my little niche. I love historical, spooky, scary stuff.
Like Cat Chronicles.
Exactly. So this takes place during the Civil War period, and our main guy here on the cover is a Native American soldier fighting in the blue for the Union soldiers. He is right in the middle of battle. He's war fatigued, and we're not open. Sorry. He's war fatigued, and he starts to see these things and experience things that are paranormal. One of his commanders turns into this hideous monster, and he's like, "What the heck's going on?" It's a really great kind of creepy story set in the period of the Civil War.
Good times. Civil War has always been ripe with for comics.
Spookiness.
Like Jonah Hex.
Yes. What else you got? What else you got?
Well, a little like my Amazing Spider-Man, it's also my spiel to get into X-Men stuff, because the top 2 books came out this week, X-Men and Wolverine. And I'm just really digging X-Men right now. And I'm into the core title. I'm into X-Force. But I mention it mostly because there's so many X books, as there always has been, and it's a little intimidating, and people have a hard time finding a way to get into X books. But now's just a great time to grab the latest issue of any of them. And again, this week is a good week because the 2 cores came out. But X-Men, Wolverine, New Mutants, which is also out this week, is a book everybody's digging. X-Force, Marauders is a book everybody likes. It just seems like X-Men is back in gear. Frankly, Marvel had neglected it for a little while. Bendis had his run on all new X-Men that was fun. But it's kind of gotten back to what X-Men has always done best, which is 1 part soap opera, 1 part intergalactic science fiction adventure, and I don't know what the 3rd part is. Teen romance. And the 3rd part is teen angst. Again, like X-Men always is, it's a little over the top. It's a little everybody doing everything, but there's a big premise going on through all the books, and then each book kind of has its own individual flavor. And like I say, if you like science fiction, or if you just like the X-Men, and Wolverine is just what Wolverine has always been, and it's got a really 90s flair, which has been fun. He's been busting out like Omega Red and some of the guys that you remember from, like I say, the 90s run of Wolverine or the 90s run of X-Force. See if I can find you some unspoiler art.
Ooh, that's cool.
Some pretty action-packed. And again, Wolverine doesn't get enough credit for, if you go back to like Weapon X and you go back to some of the things, there's always cool, like, I don't know, panel layouts and different page styles and different things in Wolverine comics, very action related. And that's fun. So like I say, great time to come back to X books. And this week particularly is a good week because 3 of the core books rolled out.
Yep. So
X-Men.
Nerd. So I'm going to finish up with my favorite book right now. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've got a lot of favorites. It's up there. It's up there, top 10. So Batman Black and White series. What I love about this is it's an anthology of short story Batman stories from top talent writers and artists. It's not part of, any universe. There's no continuity issues. It's just, if you love some Batman, you don't want to commit to a series or anything, grab 1 issue. They're not in any order. And each one is chock full with like 3 to 5 stories. Tim Seeley's in this one. We've got a Tom King one, a Paul Dini one in previous issues.
Paul Dini.
And they're all black and white, so you really get a sense of the art style. It's a great fun read. So that is what I would highly recommend for any Batman lover who's a little leery about what's going on right now with Batman. What's going on, Batman? There's a lot of stuff. He's coming back. The main series 106 is coming back on Wednesday after Future State.
I love the black and white theme. They've been doing very, very sparsely, but they've done a few different Batman black and white series. And they've got a Wolverine one going on now too, Black, White, and Blood.
Red. Oh, that's right.
And the thing that makes that cool, and people ask me about Walking Dead about this, though that's a little different because I think, frankly, it started with Walking Dead as pricing. But Batman's great for black and white because the stark contrast, because it's black and white comics. That's why they do black and white noir comics all the time, because there's this kind of coldness, a kind of abstractness in black and white that works really well for Batman and works really well for Wolverine. So I think it's a neat concept. And like you say, I like that because it accents art styles. Black and white really brings out the style of the penciler, and that's really cool.
Yeah, the shading is phenomenal.
So yeah, Batman Black and White, Wolverine Black, White, and Blood, and I think they're going to do a Carnage one next.
Sweet.
Good times. So
that's all I got on my stack.
As we begin to wrap it up, again, want to hear from you guys. What's your favorite DC books? What are you reading this week? What'd you read last week? Is Infinite? I believe so. His question is Infinite Frontier going to be as costly as what FS? Oh, Future State. Okay, I don't like to diss on things.
I'm with you, Phil.
But my one beef, Phil, with Future State was not just the price point, but the across the board price point. Why is this one $2.99 and this one's $8.99? And it was not conducive to someone buying everything across the line and checking it all out. And I thought that was a missed opportunity by DC because
$6.99.
Because obviously price point is going to be a deterrent, and $8.99 is a deterrent no matter who you are. So I would have liked to have seen things be a little more reasonable, a little more cost effective, or at least a little more consistent across the line.
They're quite a ways away from drawing the line at $2.99.
Yes. And so I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember what Infinite Frontier is, but I'll bet teeth
probably
that
like
it's
$6.99
$4.99, $5.99,
like
$6.99. It's going to be big and chunky. Now, in their defense, cardstock covers, lots of stories, lots of talent and whatever. But like I say, save the price point for the trade paperbacks.
That's a one shot, right? That's only a one issue.
Yes, it is one issue. Just going to sort of lay the groundwork for how everything's going to work going forward. And yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, Phil, because Infinite Frontier is next week. Batman 106 next week. DC fans, comic book fans in general, next week is one of those big weeks.
Berserker #1.
Berserker #1. But all the DC books are starting their new story arcs, their new creative teams, their new post Future State, their new Infinite Frontier storylines. So starting next week, it's a great time to be jumping into DC books. Great time to be checking out the next big batch of stuff. Like I always say, you're not going to like everything, but give it a try. You don't know if you don't try it. Don't listen to the internet. Don't listen to me. The world is full of naysayers, especially in comics. But just to throw it out there, next week DC's launching a whole bunch of new stuff. It'll say Wonder Woman 760, Superman #30, but they're all part ones. They're all great jump-in points. Like I say, try them out. Let's see what the new DC's got going on.
CC.
Good week for the stuff for next week. Which is my segue to my spiel. So every Wednesday, sign up for the newsletter. When you get the newsletter, you know this week's stuff is live on the site. We've got info on the store. We've got news and reviews of all the latest books. Tune in Wednesday morning, Facebook and YouTube for my Wednesday live comic video. And then you pick up your stuff, go to black-cat-comics.com, click on shop, click on new this week or last week, pick up all the books, and then tune back in on Saturday for Comic Shop Talk Live as we hang out and talk about all the new books. Yeah. Think that about wraps it up, doesn't it?
I think it does.
Right on. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye, y'all.